Tanze, everybody. Welcome back to the University College of the North. I'm Janice Seto, back with more unconventional advice that works. And if you were here for our last class in macroeconomics, we went over some of the topics that we covered in class. You might find that helpful as you are preparing for your final exam in macroeconomics. So what did we do in macroeconomics? Well, we built on microeconomics. As you can see, remember this production possibilities curve. And yes, if you are lucky as an economy, you push out the PPC. Let's take a look at what we did in our course. Remember in chapter 3, I believe, when we are looking at the economy of a country, we look at three things. We look at, are people working and how many of them are not? In other words, we look at unemployment. We also look at price level. Are prices going up or are they skyrocketing up, which means inflation? And what is the economic activity? In other words, GDP, gross domestic product. So within the boundaries of this certain place, country, etc., how are we doing? Are people working? Are they productive? And are we churning out things for the market that people will buy? So let's take a look at, we have this one. Let me see if I can grab this one. This is, the business cycle. Now we've also got product market, circular flow of money. You should also look at that one too. But this is definitely something that you should know and how to label each part of it. Now let me put that one back up and show you. Okay. So remember, when we are talking about macroeconomics, we are looking at the big picture. In other words, aggregate. Now, when we look at supply and demand, we're looking at aggregate supply and aggregate demand. Now, let's take a look at the aggregate supply curve. We will look at the let's look at the long-term aggregate supply curve. Let me see where it is. Here we are. The long-term aggregate supply curve looks a lot like there it is. It is a straight line. I know you're saying it's inelastic. Good for you for remembering that. The demand curve is, so before we look at the demand curve, so that is the aggregate supply curve in the long run. In the short run, however, it looks a little bit different. Let me see where I can find it. There it is. Let me find it. Push pin. There we are. So this is the short run aggregate supply curve. And notice that it is, it's upward sloping because that's what supply curves do in the aggregate. And one of the things that you will encounter in your textbook is what is the shape of the short run aggregate supply curve compared to the long run. Notice there is this range which is a little bit flat, and then it rises. So in your textbook, we've gone over that this part, which is rather flat, it's what the Keynesians think of the supply curve looks like, and this is what the neoclassics think of. So it's more the more sharp slope. This is more horizontal. What do we have now? Yes. So when you have the intersection of the long-run aggregate supply curve, and then you've got the short-run aggregate supply curve, and here is the demand curve. If the demand curve meets it right here, we have macroeconomic equilibrium. This is price level, and this is economic output. And if it doesn't, if however your demand curve, your aggregate demand curve does not meet at that sweet spot of the intersection of the long-run aggregate supply and the short-run aggregate supply, then you have a problem. You have a gap. So as we could see, you can have a recessionary gap, or you could have an inflationary gap. This is all in your textbook, and this is what we put together in class. Oops, that push pin went somewhere else. And this is the inflationary gap. All right, now let me just see what else we have. Where did that push pin go? I'm going to try to find it. Oh, there it is. Because if we don't find it, somebody could get hurt. look at these two. This one is, we're looking at shifting the aggregates the aggregate supply curves, and this is shifting of the aggregate demand curves. So please be familiar, what are the determinants or factors that will cause these to shift? Let's see, what else do I have here? Let's take a look at, where did it go? It went away somewhere. Okay. You should also be familiar with, let's see, inflation. So cost push and demand pull inflation and the determinants of that. We have some equations here. So please be familiar with the equations. Okay, this one here, it's in your textbook. I think it's page 328. This is the value of money. Took me a while to find it, but we found it. So as you can see, multipliers, etc. And here we are, Say's law. So remember, in neoclassicists say, we quote Jean-Baptiste Say, who said, people are not going to work hard in order to produce products and services that they're not going to sell. And so that's a very neoclassicist. We're not going to have, leftovers of stuff like that because people aren't going. But the problem with that is we do have this. Okay, so now what we're doing is, this is our last part. And so Professor Phillips, the Indiana Jones of economics, this is his Phillips curve. And you should know why that the Phillips curve was very influential. So hint, you can take a look in your textbook. We've got the Laffer curve. Laffer was supply side economics. David Ricardo, theory of comparative advantage. John Maynard Keynes is the father of macroeconomics, and he believed there was a role of government. So remember the equation, C plus I plus G plus X minus M. And so this is where the G comes from, fiscal policy. And then we've got Milton Friedman, who says, Keynes, overrated. We don't think there is a role for government, so don't buy into it. He's very much a monetarist. So anyways, ladies and gentlemen, this is a quick recap of what we did in our final class when we had everybody and we had cookies in order to do this quick review. So please look into your UCN D2L and for your final exam study guide. You should know the entire textbook, but of course, in a 3-hour exam, we're not going to cover, everything in great detail. So know the highlights. I look forward to seeing you folks in second year, and we wish you good luck on the exams that you're writing for your other instructors. And good luck in term 40. See you around the University College of the North. Ekosin. I'm Janice Seto. I'm looking forward to Ekosin.